So I've been lucky enough in my career to not have to deal with much racism aimed at me in the workplace. So what I can offer you is advice on how to speak up and support your colleagues who are dealing with racism. So the way this has come up for me is that I'll hear one colleague say something about another colleague that implies bias on the part of the speaker. And the high-level advice I have for you in those situations is speak up, because it's the right thing for you and your colleagues ultimately, and for your organization. And really because I think you will regret it if you don't speak up. So I know that speaking up is going to be hard. You could be disagreeing with your supervisor or one of your colleagues or someone you supervise, all in situations where they think they're being honest or sharing something about themselves with you. Could be a bonding moment in their minds. And what you say may very well be taken as a criticism of the person you're talking to. So the way to interject each time is going to be different in order to make the right impact. Now I realize this sounds like advice that's very hard to act on. To give you a generalized example from my own career, one thing I've heard a few different times in a few different ways is how someone won't fit in because of cultural purposes, cultural reasons. And when that's happened, uh, since I've known the person being talked about each time, I've been able to speak up and say, this person does good work, or here's what this person brings to the team, or here's why I've had really great interactions with that person. The goal there has always been to defend the person being talked about from what this sort of indirect judgment and give them the chance to build their own reputation. Now, corollary of everything I just said, if I'm hearing racist comments about my colleagues, that means some of my colleagues are dealing with racism whether they know it or not. And I do think that in a white-collar environment, the racism you are going to face is going to be this sort of indirect, behind-the-scenes judgment. So, my advice. I have heard from friends that they're dealing with this sort of accumulation of slights. Right? They're not being given credit for their work on a project. They're not being invited to meet with clients. They're not being given the chance to work with upper management or being recommended for industry awards, all in situations where their peers are being given those opportunities. So, first up, if it seems like that's happening, not being given those opportunities, uh, it may very well be a real issue you're dealing with, that you are dealing with this sort of indirect racism. You're not crazy or being oversensitive. So my advice here is you can't directly confront the judgment because it is sort of indirect and behind the scenes. What you can do instead is make sure that you get those opportunities. And you do that by telling every single opportunity giver that you want those opportunities for yourself. To be a little more specific, make sure that everyone who supervises you or who might be supervising you in the future, that you are interested in how to get promoted or in being put on bigger projects or whatever else might be the right way to build your career. In particular, I think if you take your own steps to build your career, independent of what the company advises you on or offers you, and then make sure that all those decision makers know what you're doing, that'll give them the impression of what you are trying to get to, which is making your drive and your goals obvious, that you're not content with what you've been offered or what you're doing, so that the next time that decision maker is thinking about who to give an opportunity to, they can't tell themselves that you're already content and don't need the chance to move forward, because they will know for sure that that is what you want.